guys, I'm Sathona. This is the Daily Grind, and we are going to start a series about Armored Core, how it plays, how to play it, and what you have to look forward. Um, I'm kind of late to the hype train because the announcement for Armored Core 6 happened almost a month ago or more than a month ago. But I have yet to find a concise uh, video series for the people that are just starting to look forward to play these games. First of all, your best bet is emulation. These are very old games. The last Armored Core game came out in either 2013 or 2014, so that was a while ago. And it came out for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. So the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, Xbox, whatever their generations were equivalent to this Sony console, well, they didn't get an Armored Core title, and we are gonna experience Armored Core for the first time officially on PC with Fires of Rubicon. Now, the control scheme for this game has changed over the years because it added support for the double joysticks found in the DualShock controller and the Xbox controller, the Xbox 360 controller. But people are having trouble playing an emulator because they are trying to make the game work like a shooter. It's not a shooter. It's not really a combat game, even though it's centered and balanced around PvP. This is one of the oldest games in the PlayStation history of consoles to allow human versus human interaction. The game originally, when it came out for the PlayStation 1, for the original run of the PlayStation 1 around 1997, was also one of the first titles for the console, and it was one of the very few titles that supported cable links. Cable links was a way to set up a kind of an internet between two PlayStation 1s. They had to be physically near, but it allowed each person one versus one to play on their own monitor and using their own system. So no spies, no spying between players. You can also play PvP with a vertical split screen in this game. It's very fun, and that's actually what gave it legs. So people asking about the story of Armored Core, the story, the storylines are always very vague. They are also very basic. They don't have a lot of outward moral conflict. The moral conflict in the Armored Core games comes from the fact that you're playing a mercenary that doesn't care who employs him or her or it, because we have cyber mercenaries, and just performs the missions. And the storyline is a revolving one where in every title you become so good at some point that everybody else, all the companies, all the other mercenaries gather around, try to kill you. You overcome the odds, finish the game, and become, well, a legend or the hero. Well, but that's not the point of the video. All right. So, just to get it out of the way, a lot of people praise this game because of its customization. And when they mean customization, they refer to this build your own thing, build your own mech kind of thing that you can choose different weapons. You can equip a right hand weapon, a left hand weapon. In the original Armored Core, you could only equip laser blades on the left hand. You can equip different types of weapons to the back slots, missile launchers, rocket launchers, grenade launchers, rail cannons, and stuff like that. Uh, Let me go with missiles instead of rockets. But that's not really the customization this game should be famous for. Like, you play the game, you complete the missions, you have to make a income balance sheet that will allow you to accrue money over time to buy different parts, better parts, depending on your play style. This is all fine and dandy. Ultimately, it's all about comparing stats between parts. In the original PlayStation titles, there were three Armored Core games for the PlayStation: Armored Core, Project Phantasm, and Master of Arena. In these initial games, the best parts for each category, there's lightweight, middleweight, and heavyweight, are very obvious. There is not a lot of parts to go around. It's just over 100, and many of those are just different models for more or less the same stats. So it's very, very obvious what the best parts for Armored Core are. It's not very difficult to choose. It will improve with the sequels over time. They will allow you to get at least two or three different choices with similar stats, so you can also make your mech look like what you want and build replicas that kind of look like famous mechs in anime history. Well, the real the real game, many share this opinion. The real game comes in this part. You can actually paint your robot however you like. You can paint different parts and make your robot look evil or maybe much more upbeat with all color choices and whatnot. Or you can instead choose individual pieces of the robot and apply a color scheme. It can be the same color palette, but you can tailor the looks of your mech to however you like. This is just part of the customization. This is what I actually call customization. And Armored Core, it also has camouflage patterns with different colors, but you can choose in this iteration of the game, you can choose the colors of the camouflage. They are pre-made, they are pre-built, so whatever. The real meat and bones of the customization comes into this. You can actually draw stuff in this game, like you can let your inner graphics designer in you dictate however you want to paint your character. People have lost entire lifetimes coming up with the perfect logo for their mech. And even though this is kind of very limited because it's pixel art basically, you can then apply, change the emblem, and whatever you design is slapped on the left shoulder of your mech. You can also name your creation, and you can be identified in tournaments because you could save all of this to your memory card and take it to a friend's house or take it to a tournament setting. We used to run, back in the day, we used to run presential tournaments, PvP tournaments for Armored Core. So there were categories like looks, logos, color schemes, and whatnot, and the the makes very memorable. Yes, so you can expect this to be full of dicks when Armored Core 6 comes out. There is bound to be someone somewhere who is going to paint a dick and is going to slap it everywhere, because later games in the series allow you to use way more tools. You can now use layers, you can reshape through resizing the logo and stuff like that. And you can always take your core for a ride, and we're going to be discussing the problem that people has with these very old games. The first 7 games in the series share the same control scheme. Back when this game originally came out, the DualShock didn't exist. So what you had was an SNES controller, that's the original PlayStation controller, with 2 extra shoulder buttons. So from run into a problem, there is the thing, you can't look around and shoot because this game is not really a shooter. You don't need good reflexes to aim at the enemies, and you have a ton of mobility, so it's very difficult to aim wherever you like. So the default controller setup is good for playing these old games because you have something inside your mech that is called the fire control system. If you pay attention, there is a giant red square on the screen that moves to wherever I turn around to see. Well, you only have to keep the enemy inside that square that is called a reticle, and over the years it will change shape. And as long as a tiny bit or the hitbox of the enemy is inside this reticle, if you pay attention, the mech immediately keeps aiming at the enemy, and that's all you need. So the control scheme is like this: on your cross path, up makes you walk forward, down makes you walk backwards, left makes you turn left, right makes you turn right. If you use the shoulder buttons, L1 makes you strafe left and R1 button makes you strafe right. Now, this is a controller setup similar to what first-person shooters have. And the real trick with Armored Core is using your dashing in conjunction with strafing in order to boost around. In the original PlayStation, that's the cross button. In the modern Xbox controllers, that's the A button. A makes you jump, and if you keep it pressed, you activate your booster. If you are on the ground, then you are going to boost over the ground in the direction you are moving. Now, if you move forward and turn in either direction, uh, you're going to boost in a circle. This circle is dependent on the turning ability of the legs that you have equipped, and there are different kind of legs, but we are not discussing that right now. Now, if you strafe and turn in the opposite direction, the circle becomes much smaller, and if you boost while doing this, you turn way faster and it's easier to keep track of your opponents. Now, in later games in the series, this skill is what you need to play Armored Core. You have to be able to turn around very fast. You have to learn to change directions in the air because in the air it's easier to turn. Like you strafe, dash, and then you boost backwards and you can change direction very easily. Different legs and different boosters give the same result, but slower or faster. And all the trick you need to learn is to do that as fast as possible with whatever build you made. And this is what confuses people. Now, there are two more shoulder buttons, and we're going to go inside the test again to showcase this. Um, you're going to run into this control scheme through Armored Core 1, Project Phantasm, Master of Arena, Armored Core 2, Armored Core 2 Another Age, Armored Core 3, and Armored Core 3 Silent Light. Well, what happens when your enemy jumps? Well, you have a very uncomfortable way of trying to aim up, which is using the L2 button or the left trigger in the modern controllers. This makes your mech look up. And the opposite, right trigger, makes you look downwards. And it's actually easier in this game to aim downwards. Now, people get confused and they think they have to track the enemy wherever it goes, and it actually recognizes analog pressing. It's not doing digital. Anyways, you can reset the reticle pressing both triggers at the same time. This is all you need to know. Now, you can try and fail moving around and keeping the reticle on the enemy and try to look up and down. But the real trick in Armored Core is trying to remain as level as possible with the reticle and just make small adjustments. Like if you're going to be fighting at long range and you know the enemy is going to move up, keep the reticle just a bit on the ground, and that way if the enemy jumps, he's going to still be inside the reticle. We're going to discuss how the fire control system works in another video, but this is the thing. As long as you have a red lock, you are more than likely to hit the enemy. But there are many factors that modify that. Anyways, now if you have the high ground or you have a core, this is valid for every Armored Core game, and that's what you should be learning if you are playing retro emulation. If you're playing these games, these old games, is that if your core is able to stay in the air a lot of the time, you just have to keep the reticle aiming just a bit downwards so you can keep the target inside of the reticle. Okay? And now for the final lesson on movement, on how you control your core. And this applies to the whole series. The only thing that changes is how energy regenerates, the parts involved in the construction of the mech, and how you aim. Starting with Armored Core Nexus for the PlayStation 2, you were able to look around with the right joystick and move with the left joystick. And boosting changed a little, but this still remains true. Your mech has a weight, and if you fall from a tall altitude, you are going to hard stomp on the ground. I think there was one of these games where you can actually do damage by landing on top of someone. But the downside is that if you land hard, you stop dead on your tracks. You cannot move, you cannot shoot, you cannot turn around, you cannot boost if you land hard. So one of the first skills that you should be practicing, because this works for every game in the series, even Armored Core 4 and Armored Core 4 Answer, which have a lot more mobility than this. You already learned to circle strafe and use boost at the same time. But now uh, you have to keep tabs on your energy, and you're going to circle strafe while boosting and jumping in the air, letting energy regenerate a little, and letting go, and then just boost a bit before landing. Let you go up and down to make you a harder target to hit, because this game, even though has AI controlled opponents, they are very dumb and they are kind of easily dealt with. But with a human opponent, you're going to have to learn to change directions, land soft so you can move immediately, turn around fast, and wave and dash, and know when to stop to regenerate some energy and do stuff like this. Not hitting the booster or not activating the booster in one go. Armored Core 1 is harder to make a core that can stay a lot of time in the air, um, and is still capable of landing soft. Because even if you don't believe it, this game has physics. So if you jump too high, you gain momentum and it's harder to break and land softly. Also, if you boost for way too long in a single direction, then it's easier for the enemies to keep track on you by adjusting the reticle and just turning around with you. And this could happen, that you run out of energy, and if you're using energy-based weapons like the blade or energy rifles, you cannot shoot until the generator cools down. And in another video, we're going to be discussing how to lead shots, because you can lead shots. You have to learn how to compensate for the fire control system. But these are the basic movements. Some people don't like it. Well, the rest of the controllers, you shoot with a square. You change from your front right hand weapon to the weapons on the back. In a cycle, you go right hand, right back slot, left back slot with a triangle button, and you activate the energy blade with the circle button. A lot of people don't like the default control scheme because it doesn't allow you to quickly change weapons, which is idiotic in the very old Armored Core games. Because when you switch weapons, your mech has to let go of the right hand weapon and set it aside, then activate the back weapon, which then it has to be put into place before you can shoot. It's not very twitchy with the shooting. It's very twitchy with the movement. And that's something that you will have to learn and practice. Because these skills translate over to every game in the series. You have to learn how to dash in the air. You have to practice with the core you design to know how long can you let go of the booster. and how long you have to press it again so you can land soft. And later on, starting from Armored Core 2, you get another movement option that is called the overboosting. Overboosting is like a turbo that consumes a lot of energy but gives you double or triple the dashing speed that you get. And you can do that in the air too. And you will have to learn how to time the activation of the overboost with your jumps so you can overboost in the air, cancel that overboost, jump again in the air with the booster, and go in circles with it. It's very complex, and that's why some people don't like the default controller option because it's very tanky. It's intuitive, but requires you to use your both hands and sometimes even one finger for the crosspad, one finger for the face buttons, and you have to constantly be boosting and firing and then switching your finger position so you can switch between weapons. And it's kind of hard to develop enough skill to just roll your thumb. I have never had trouble with it. But you are going to have a lot of trouble with this game if you try to play it like a third person shooter. It's not. It's not. It's more like a simulator. And we can discuss that later. But the controller scheme is intuitive. It's not responsive. You have to learn a lot about timing. After all, this game is the predecessor to the Dark Souls series, starting from Demon Souls and then Dark Souls. The design philosophy from software has is evident even from this game. They care a lot about you learning the timing of each game, how to use the weapons, when to shoot, when to move, how to dodge, and stuff like that. Well, these are the basic maneuvers, and they're going to help you a bit. You have to practice a lot, and I sincerely recommend that you start, if you're going to start this series, I recommend you start with Armored Core 1. And then you can maybe skip Project Phantasm and Master of Arena, but then you have to play Armored Core 2 and then go directly to Armored Core 3 and Silent Light. Why? Because Armored Core 2 was more of an iterative um, edition. It's more like a high definition version of Armored Core 1. It introduces overboosting and some new balancing for the parts, but it only adds more parts. They look different, they have different names, but you start to recognize the parts as you advance through the series. You know, well, I need this, and that to make a very mobile, lightweight mech and whatnot. And you start to realize that even though the weapons are named differently and they have different 3D models and whatnot, well, the one you're seeing on the screen, it's called the Karasawa Mark 1. Pretty much every game in the series has a Karasawa. It's always an energy rifle. It most of the time has only 50 shots, and it's broken to hell and back, no matter how the balancing of the game goes. It's also very heavy and very energy consuming. And you also get the Moonlight Blade, because that thing didn't start in even in Armored Core. In fact, it's a holdover from Software first foray into video games. Dark Tower featured the Moonlight Blade. So they put that in here as a shout out to their own game. And it's very cool. And there's a mission that involves someone nicknamed Dark Souls in Armored Core 1. So I'll let you discover what's that. And if you like the video, if it was helpful for you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, Ring that bell so you know when I am uploading new videos, and we'll see each other next time. Until then, goodbye.